Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you on this July 21st, 2025. I hope you had a great weekend. I've got all your stories for your rush hour ride to work. We're going to be discussing the Astronomer CEO, or should I say former CEO, the guy caught in the kiss cam while he's now looking for a new job. Polish up the old LinkedIn, you'll be fine. Then some more information on Laura Owens, the fraudster who faked a pregnancy. And then we've got more info on the Blake Lively subpoena. Oh, we have it all, from Laura Owens to Blake Lively to Jeffrey Epstein, all of our favorite characters. We'll be discussing Jeffrey Epstein and the government's real solid attempts to get people to shift focus away from that story. They're now wanting to lock up former President Obama. What? That's right. They want to have him investigated. We'll share that. And then the Democrats aren't going down without a fight, discussing gerrymandering from Texas to California. It's about to get crazy out there. All these stories and more starts right now on The Rush. All right, why don't we dive into the Astronomer CEO? They released a statement on Saturday. This is the guy who was caught canoodling with his HR executive. Here's what Astronomer had to say. Again, billion-dollar company. As stated previously, Astronomer is committed to the values and culture that have guided us since our founding. Our leaders are expected to set the standard in both conduct and accountability, and recently that standard was not met. Andy Byron has tendered his resignation, and the board of directors has accepted. The board will begin a search for our new chief executive as co-founder and chief product officer Pete DeJoy continues to serve as interim CEO. Before this week, we were known as a pioneer in the data ops space, helping data teams power everything from modern analytics to production AI. So snooze. So, all right, there it is. And you know, I asked a lot of questions like, well, maybe the CEO was just trying to help the HR director put their belt on. Well, now we're getting new images dropping in from this Coldplay concert that actually show the cheating happening. And again, it's a terrible story. It's a terrible story for all the families that were affected by this. The CEO's daughter has actually gotten well over 100,000 TikTok followers out of it as she's there to roast her father. And I say, go for it. You know, this is his time to deal with the shame of destroying his family, and shame's a pretty motivating tool. I mean, look, you always try to put, my wife and I over the weekend, we were talking about this, trying to get in the mind of this guy. He had it all. He could have just wined and dined his wife and saved his marriage. It's like, no, you don't understand. Somebody who gets into that role, in a lot of cases, have that personality type where it's all about living for the thrill. Just like do some therapy, learn about dopamine, and don't succumb to whatever primal instinct you have to go bang it out at a Coldplay concert. Jesus Christ. I mean, come on now, folks. All right. Oh, hey, how about this? I got a new update. I've entered the TikTok shop world. That's right, TikTok shop. I'll turn the audio down. You got to go to my TikTok, folks. Not only do I have daily rush hour videos, but I'm now doing influencer. Now, hold on a second before you get turned off completely from this. I got about 1,000 products in my house. People are always asking me what I'm buying, what I've got, what's working for the child, dad tips, workout things, lighting, camera, podcasting. So every day, I'm going to be posting all of the things that I like that are in the TikTok shop. And I'll let you guys know if I make any money doing it. Of course, there's some affiliate sales to it. But aside from that, on TikTok, I've got my stand-up comedy playlist, Rush Hour podcast, and now your boys in the influencer game. I don't care. I got no shame about it. Let's go. And speaking of having no shame, Laura Owens, no shame whatsoever, ever. So here's an update. Schnitzel Ninja, fantastic journalist, media personality. She's, compiled all of the, different court videos and documents. Well, now she's received a copyright claim from David Gingras, the attorney of Laura Owens. David Gingras admits to writing entire DVRO filing for Laura. Guess who just filed a copyright claim on a video of me reading a publicly available court filing? None other than David Gingras. Yep, supernumerary sensation from that one unforgettable episode of Dr. Phil. Gingras didn't just claim a portion, he claimed the entire video was his copyrighted work. which only leaves us with two options. He either wrote the entire filing himself, including Laura's sworn declaration, despite the fact she filed the case pro per, repping herself. This filing including not just legal arguments, but also a deeply personal statement with wild accusations, apparently ghostwritten by someone who isn't even her attorney of record. Or he didn't write the whole thing, in which case he just filed a completely false copyright claim. Yeah, I mean, this guy is off his rocker. And folks are wondering, he, of course, got that DUI last week or a few weeks ago, which was only several minutes away from where Laura lives. Maybe he's sipping the bottle, writing some, helping her with her court stuff. I mean, boy, twin flames emerging in the night. So either way, I hope Schnitzelinza fights it. But this is just the name of the game, right? It's about frivolous lawsuits meant to scare people. That's really what it's about, which takes us into Blake Lively, which we'll get to next. So conversation around Blake Lively really right now is centered around the subpoenas for the content creators. I'm going to share what a lawyer is saying, several lawyers actually, about the targeting of content creators sort of as punishment and as a way for Blake Lively to sort of fish for whatever knowledge might be out there. Maybe it's delusion, where she thinks all these content creators are all on the payroll of Justin Baldoni. No one really knows for sure. But this is the fascinating stuff that I tend to gravitate to with my content. And look, we'll talk politics after this, but it's kind of the same deal. If Trump wants to sue news organizations, it's the same as Blake Lively trying to subpoena content creators. It's trying to put pressure on people to stop talking. And that pressure is really getting in the way of their First Amendment rights. The right to have an opinion, the right to report the news, the right to talk about these things online. And Blake, she can wonder all she wants if there's some conspiracy. But if she doesn't have any basis for those claims, then she's just blowing smoke up our asses. So someone posted this. This is why it's unlikely Ezra Hudson, who's Blake Lively's attorney's letter, was probably misleading and they don't have real evidence from TAG like they are trying to make people believe. So Blake Lively's attorney tried to make people believe that TAG, the other PR company that was sort of, they were accused of being part of the smear campaign, they were trying to make it believe that TAG had this list of content creators that they may have worked with, which is completely not true. If they truly had evidence from interrogatories, like emails or admissions from the PR firm, the subpoena would reference that to justify unmasking creators. The subpoena was asking for identities, which shows they viewed them as anonymous. They have nothing substantial, or else a subpoena would have met their requirements. And listen, this is really what it comes down to is they know publicly who's talking. They have Andy Signor, Kirsty, Without a Crystal Ball. They've named certain people, right? But they have zero evidence other than their own conspiracies that they're all being paid by people to talk. Here's what attorney Katie had to say. She offers, I got to get her on the show. She offers really fantastic opinions regarding this case. Here's what she had to say about the targeting of content creators and just kind of how ugly this is getting.
That was given in interrogatory. But they have some interesting language, in my opinion, around this, right? It says, after TAG was ordered to respond to the interrogatories, TAG supplemented its response, identifying a number of individuals who have spoken publicly about Ms. Lively. Okay, well, a bunch of people have spoken publicly about Ms. Lively in this lawsuit. Apparently, at the behest of TAG and other Wayfair defendants. That word apparently there, I feel like, you can play with things there. That strikes me.
Yeah, so when they say apparently, it's like, do you have the proof? Do you have the link that they spoke to these content creators? If not, get the hell out of here. It's really what it comes down to. And again, here we have Without a Crystal Ball sharing her subpoena. They're looking for, her Google Pay, her YouTube, her full name, email addresses, phone numbers, physical. I mean, they have nothing if they need this. Her IP addresses, bank account info. It seems pretty aggressive. And again, how does Blake Lively think this is going to make her look any better? So all of this shakedown of content creators, it's a real concern for everybody. We have an audience of thousands, and a lot of these other content creators have audiences in the thousands. What if we all went away? What if we weren't allowed to make this type of content without getting content strikes, copyright strikes, subpoenas, being taken down by larger people? I mean, you would never have any justice whatsoever if you could just shut people up. So here we have Commit to the Brit discussing how this case reminds her of abuse she faced from her own boyfriend.
Abusers will use the court system to drag people into court over and over and over again. They will use the court system to perpetuate their abuse. And I keep thinking about my stalker. I had dated a guy when I was 17, 18 who was in his 20s. And when I moved away to college, he continued stalking me. And it was by any means necessary, which is Blake Lively's legal strategy, it seems. By any means necessary, because what they didn't do was give any of the individuals, what they didn't do in issuing their subpoenas in this case so far as we've seen, is they didn't give the individuals any sort of notice that their personal and private information was going to be shared with a third party.
So that being when Van Zandt, this sham Blake Lively company, sent a subpoena to Stephanie Jones, they didn't alert Jen Abel, hey, there's a subpoena, we're going to have to give this information up, which was a huge violation. So Commit to the Brit asks a lot of great questions like, is this the sort of precedent we're going to give lawyers, that they can just dole out subpoenas and that this is just the game we'll be able to play? And where is the ethical conversation behind this? And a lot of people are talking about this, right? And if there's any lawyers who want to come on the show, but this idea that you're allowed to rigorously defend your client, absolutely. But when does it cross that line? And we're beginning to see. And by the way, this abuse that she speaks of, taking people into the court system, we see Laura Owens doing it. We're seeing Blake Lively do it against these content creators, just trying to shake them down for no good reason. And, I think in today's world, this stuff works less and less because we have the transparency of the internet. It's kind of like what I'll be discussing on the second half of this episode with Epstein. The more they say, don't look at Epstein, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, the more we're like, we need to look behind that curtain, right? And it's like, there may be something there may not be, but the idea that they're trying to, silence people, whether it's content creators or the Epstein files. I know it's two completely different stories, but the idea that they're trying to silence people makes the internet go, no, we want transparency. And by the way, Blake Lively could argue, I want transparency. I want to know who's behind all these attacks, to which you go, hey, dum-dum, these are just people in the public that don't like you. And you have no shred of evidence that there's anything more to it. All right, how about this story? You want to talk about unlikable. Now, listen, I like this Brian Luttrell guy, all right? I was born in the 80s. I know a Backstreet Boy. I'll go New Kids on the Block with you. We'll go old school. We'll even throw some 98 Degrees. I can get down to some LFO if you really want to talk summertime girls are the kind I like. I stole their money like they stole my bike. Boogaloo, shrimp, and pogo sticks. My mind takes me back there oh so quick. I'll talk about it all day. But this is pretty funny because we have Brian Luttrell, Backstreet Boy, on Fox News. He's really upset, and maybe he has a point. He's really upset that the public is walking onto his private beach. And even if you have a point, it just sounds silly, because no one has private beaches. And when you do, when you publicly sort of complain about people, dusting up your private beach, no one has any sympathy for you. Have a listen.
This is a personal thing. This is the American dream. Like, I've worked for 3 decades, longer than 3 decades in the music business to have some sort of honesty and transparency in my music. Music is an emotion that brings.
Okay, but Bubba, you're a boy band member. You have a goatee. All right? Chill out, okay? Music is an art form that brings it. I say, Bubba, all right, you danced to auto-tuned, okay.
All kinds of walks of life together for happiness and joy. And so I think I could walk out on the beach and, people be like, hey, man, it's nice to meet you. but just keep it moving. Like just keep walking, because that beach access doesn't entitle you to public beach.
And by the way, I do get the point. I'm sure they have fans that show up and they want to hang out with them and everything. And it's like, I get that. You got to buy your own island. You know what I mean? That's what you need, is your own island. When you have a beach, it's like people can walk through and they can float up to it on their dinghies and whatnot. Either way, you're not going to, but again, just the world's not going to feel sorry for you. And this might be that Barbara Streisand effect, where you might have parades of people coming to your private beach now.
So, the cops going on record against the taxpayers, it's very frustrating. And this has been a humbling experience, I have to say, because...
And by the way, we are going to hold a vigil for Brian Luttrell not having enough private time on his private beach. That vigil, actually, will be tonight, so you guys can come check that out. All right, well, coming up next, we'll be discussing so much going on in the world of politics. But for those folks that don't want to discuss it, you'd rather bury your head in the sand of Brian Luttrell's beach. That's fine. No hate there. Go to my TikTok shop if you want to buy any of my sweet, sweet merch. And by the way, I wouldn't promote anything I don't own and use myself. So I'm not just a client. I'm the CEO. We'll be back right after this with all of your Epstein updates.